Hello, my name is Adam Woolcombe. Welcome to my Masterworks presentation about blacksmithing. At the beginning of the year, I saw a video about blacksmithing and it stuck in my mind. It was perfect because I wanted to do something that was fun for me, and I do love building things. And this project is a way for me to learn something new, maybe even help me in the future. Why would I choose this topic? Because I think it's awesome. It's hands-on, creative, connects you with history, and lets you make cool stuff while being part of a community. What is blacksmithing, you may ask? Blacksmithing is a traditional craft using metal and iron to create objects like weapons, gates, tools, and artistic sculptures, to name a few. I chose blacksmithing to learn important life skills and to understand how to use a forge. I also learned how to use machinery, like a sanding belt and grinders, to make tools and weapons. The topics I'll be covering in my presentation consist of what's a forge, the types of forges and how they work, the types of steel used in forging weapons, my struggles and process, and least importantly, safety. Just kidding. But what even is a forge? A forge is basically a box of fire that uses flames to heat up a piece of metal to get really hot. The temperatures get around 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. By comparison, your kitchen stove can probably only reach about 500. So while you're baking cookies, I'll be making swords. Forges are usually used for metalwork. They've been around for thousands of years, but when it comes to different types of forges, it gets a little more tricky. There are many types of forges, and they all work in their unique ways. The three main types of forges are gas, solid fuel, and electric induction forges. Each of these forges work differently, even though they would all be able to be used to make the same tools. The first of the forges I'll be going over is the gas forge. There are a few different components that the gas forges need to work, but I'll be sticking to the top three. Number one is the shell. Most often made out of steel, the shell contains heat within the forge and is usually lined with an insulated layer to keep the heat inside the forge to make the metal heat up faster. The second component is the insulation. The insulated layer is crucial for retaining heat. The insulated layer is usually made of ceramic fiber blanket or fire brick that is used to line the inside of the forge to protect the shell from intense heat and keep it concentrated inside where it is needed. The third component is the burners. Gas forges can have one or more burners depending on the size and the heat requirement. These burners inject a mix of propane or natural gas and air into the forge, creating a combustible mixture that burns at high temperatures and is targeted onto the metal where it heats to intense temperatures. Next forge I'll be going over is the solid fuel forge. A solid fuel forge is a type of furnace used primarily in blacksmithing, metalworking, and other crafts where materials, typically metals, are heated to high temperatures. Unlike gas forges that use propane or natural gas, solid fuel forges use traditional combustibles such as coal, coke, or charcoal as their primary fuel source. A solid fuel forge also depends on three main components: the fire pot, the tuyer, and the hearth. The fire pot is the central element of the forge where the solid fuel is burned. It's typically made from heavy-duty metal and is designed to withstand high temperatures. The fire pot contains the fire and focuses the heat. The second is the tuyer, which is a pipe or nozzle that delivers air to the fire pot. The air, which is often supplied by hand-operated bellows or an electric blower, intensifies the heat by providing the necessary oxygen to fuel combustion. And third is the hearth, which is the area surrounding the fire pot, usually a flat surface made of metal or fire brick. It holds additional fuel and catches pieces of hot metal or slag. The next forge is the electric induction forge, most often referred to as an induction furnace. It's a type of forge that uses electromagnetic induction to heat metal objects. This method of heating is efficient, fast, and precise, making it popular in both industrial settings and smaller workshops for specific tasks. Unlike traditional forges that use solid or gas fuels to create heat, Induction forges produce heat directly within the metal, through the metal object through electrical currents, eliminating the need for a flame or external heat source. Electric induction forges use a coil of conductive material, usually copper, to run a high-frequency alternating current through it. This creates a magnetic field and rapidly heats up the steel. Now that you understand the types of forges, my next topic is the types of steel. There are many different types of steel that can be used, but today I'm going to be focusing on the main two: tool steel and structural steel. The first of the steel I'll be covering is tool steel. This type of steel is harder than structural steel because of the higher carbon count. Tool steel is better than structural steel for making tools because instead of having a more flexible bendy steel that warps under pressure, this steel will stay straight under hard force but will snap under extreme pressure. Since tool steel has a higher carbon count than structural steel, it makes it better for making cutters, knife, bits like bolts and screws, and other items for machine parts. The next type of steel is structural steel, which is softer than tool steel. This type of steel is more for buildings and supports because instead of snapping, which is bad, it bends. This is much better for supporting large amounts of weight. This steel is designed to hold a building or support for as long as possible by bending to hold the weight. All of this information about metals was very important for my project because I needed to know what the best steel to purchase was. I only used tool steel for the objects I made as they were the best for making blades and not designing a house. Next is safety, because when you work with a forge, safety is very important. The main factors of safety are protective gear, space, and knowledge. Right over here is the gear that you use to make a forge, like a jacket that is leather because leather doesn't burn, gloves that have an insulated layer so you don't burn your hands, goggles so you don't get sparks in your eyes, and headphones because it's loud. When working with super hot metal, you definitely need to protect yourself. You should wear eye protection and a face shield. You should also wear leather clothing as it doesn't melt or catch on fire, like cotton. The gloves are also very important because they're made out of leather and have an insulated layer inside. You should always work with a lot of space around you, especially being aware of other people. It's also always a good idea to have some sort of fire stopper because I didn't feel like losing an eyebrow. And not every fire you can just stomp out. So in case I knock over the forge or stick something in there that I shouldn't, then it's always safer to have a water bucket or a fire extinguisher. And just in case I do get hurt, which is not unlikely knowing me, you should always have an adult nearby to hear your screams of agony. So why not grab the most unqualified geezer of all time, my dad? Because why not have one idiot standing around a box with fire coming out of it when you could have two, wondering why the fire is so hot? Another good way to not end up in the hospital is instead of taking the hot metal out of the forge and standing there wondering what to do first and rushing before the metal gets cold, think of what you're going to do before slapping someone in the face with it accidentally. Last but not least, always have 911 on speed dial because you're not going to be able to dial 911 with missing fingers. Next, I'll be talking about my journey and process in blacksmithing. The first thing I needed to start my blacksmithing journey was a forge. First, I had to find out what type of forge would be best. I thought I would make my own forge, so I researched different websites about forges and how they work. To make a forge, and how to make a forge. I had a conversation with my advisor, Ishan. He told me that a propane forge would be the best for setup and ease of use. It would also take a lot of time to build one, so I decided it would be better to buy one that wasn't too expensive and save time. Instead of making a forge, we found a forge online that wasn't too expensive and was exactly what I needed. I bought the forge off the website called Vever, which Scott and Ishan told me about. Here's the video of it. Okay, then I started planning what I wanted to make. I decided my first project would be to make a knife. This was a very good experience and taught me a lot about what I needed to know to make a scythe, which is what I wanted to make next. When the forge finally arrived, which took a couple weeks, I immediately set it up. I had to assemble the parts like the muskets, which are the 2 sticks on top, the musket connector, and had to lay the fire bricks inside the forge. I also found out that anvils are very expensive and cost too much to buy, so I had to improvise when I worked at them at home. My advisor, Ishan, gave me his anvil, which was very nice. Thank you, Ishan. A couple weeks after that, I met up with Ishan and Scott at the school one early Saturday morning in October 2023. We set up the forge and used a piece of leaf spring from a car welded to a piece of rebar for a handle. Then I put the piece of metal in the forge to heat it up to a yellowish orange and then take it out and hit it into shape. Starting with the tip and handle, then making a rough edge. Then we clenched it in motor oil, which is when we rapidly cool the metal, which makes it super brittle, but then what I did was heat it up in an oven for an hour on 500 so that the inner stress is relieved and makes it stronger. Then I sharpen the edge and make the handle fit. Here's the video. Oh wait, no. Here's the video of me making the knife.
Work that tip into kind of a knife shape.
As you can see, I'm starting with making the tip, and then I'll be going down the rest of it later. All right. Oh, oops. I finished the first knife by adding details and grinding it down so it would fit in the handle. I also finished and made some changes with a different knife to the handle by cutting it out so it would fit better in my hand. I grinded down the edge to make it sharp. And polished so it would look nice. And then I used glue to keep it in the handle and let it rest so it would harden. The next object I made, not that video again. The next object I made was the scythe. It started out on March 21st when I found a cool stick that I could use for a handle. I also started to use the second piece of metal that Ishan gave me to make the blade of the scythe. But the scythe got a rip in it by me not paying attention while I was pointlessly hammering. So to solve this problem, I made slight serrations in the blade to cut out the rip in the scythe so it wouldn't affect it. It's finished now as well. Here's a video. Sped up. As you can see, I'm wiping off the anvil because of the stuff, and I dropped it. And then I had to clean off all the sparks. It's pretty cool. All right. Shout out to Leo also for giving me this cool purple shirt that's also fireproof. Go check him out if you're working with fire. All right. There you have it. That's the project that took my whole year and all my time. All jokes aside, this project has been very fun and painful at times, and is easily the biggest project I've ever done. I want to give a huge thanks to Ishan, my advisor, for starting me off and teaching me ropes at the very beginning, also giving me not all of, but a lot of tools. I also want to give a thanks to Scott for checking in on me and making sure that I'm always on track, and I'm sure I wouldn't have finished with this presentation without him. And also my dad, who drove everywhere to find all the tools I needed and kept me safe when I was doing something stupid that could have gotten me killed. And Jen, for making me focus on my tasks while also doing the same for everybody else at the same time. And a big thanks to all my classmates and teachers, and thank you for listening. I was so nice. All right. Okay. I'm sure you're all so eager to see what I've made, so why not just show you now?
Can we have a drum roll?
Okay. First is the knife. Okay.
Tell us about it.
Oh yeah. So this is made from recycled metal that I found in my backyard. This is also made from a leaf spring of a car, and this is from an axe that Ishan gave me. So. And this is the scythe. The handle's made from a shovel that I found in my backyard that's probably been in there for years. This is also a leaf spring that Ishan gave me from a car. And this is all just construction glue that I used to tape it all together. So.
I'm just going to prompt Adam. Adam, let's bring up your slide there that you had earlier of the original metal. And just for comparative purposes, let's hold up your beautiful dagger. Yeah.
All right.
So
this one on the left was the knife, and then the one on the other side was the blade of my scythe. So, yeah.
before and after.
Yeah.
Scott, and then we'll go to you.
Right, so Adam, Mr. Woolcombe, congratulations. It was truly a journey for you, and I am so appreciative of the opportunity for you to do something that made me so happy, because when I saw you that first day in October, pounding that red hot metal, and just knowing you for the past 4 years and how physical you are and how strong you are, and it was amazing to see that physicality and know that that was going to be the start of an amazing journey. As I listened to your presentation again today, there's so many elements there of learning, and yeah, so kudos to you. My question revolves around the technique that you learned with respect to, pounding that red hot, yellow hot metal. It didn't come out in your presentation, but I know there's a lot of learning there. So when you're pulling the piece out of the forge and hammering away on that anvil, what are some of the things you learned in terms of how to do that well or efficiently, effectively, safely?
Well, I learned that I have to set up and just think of what I'm gonna do before I actually take the metal out of the forge. Because the first couple times that I did it, I would take the metal out and then rush for my hammer and then get it on, and it would already be cold because I didn't know what I was doing before that. So obviously thinking what I'm gonna do before. And then also with the technique with the hammer, you have to get it flat down on the surface, and you have to have the surface of the metal that you're making on the anvil. So when you hit it, it doesn't like
You
divot,
described
put
it
it-
bouncing
yeah.
as a problem.
Yeah, no, if it's bouncing, then it's not flat on the metal. But then, like, when you hit it, you have to hit it very precisely, because if you hit it at an angle, it'll put a divot in the metal, which won't look very good. Yeah.
Nice. Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Ishu.
Yeah, you mentioned that there was a rip in the handle. Can you tell us a little, or the blade of the scythe?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more
So-
about what happened and how you fixed it?
When I was hitting the metal to curve it downwards in a scythe-looking shape, the metal started to twist. It went from straight, and then some of it started to twist sideways, which ripped it. So then I would have had it straight, but I had to put these divots in it to cut the crack out so that it wouldn't be noticeable.
Okay, yeah, that's a really smart fix.
Thank you.
Got any projects in mind for the summer, or what's going on next?
I want to try and make a sword of some kind. So that's about it. Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Great, thank you.
Can I just build onto that? So how much more do you have to know about building a sword? Because I can see the handle here, and this part, I don't know what that's actually called. What's that called? The protection?
Guard.
The guard.
The guard,
Yeah.
that's a smart idea. If you had a sword, what else is it that you're gonna have to, like, what's the difference between the work you've done now and what you're gonna do on the sword?
It's pretty much just a longer blade. That's it. Because it's the same thing to attach it into the handle. It's the same thing. It's just a little bit harder because you have more surface to work with.
Will it fit inside here?
I'll have to heat it up in sections because I'm not like hitting the whole sword lengthwise. I would probably do it in sections. So yeah, it doesn't really matter how big the forge is.
Questions, go on.
Great presentation, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you.
Did I say that correctly?
Yep.
Is it okay if I do 2 questions?
Sure.
How long did it take for you to build the site?
Like 5 hours, probably. Yeah, around 5.
What about the knife?
The knife, probably also 5 or 6.
Amazing presentation, Mr. Woolcombe. I was just wondering, did you pick this as your topic because you wanted to set a job, and if you do, do you see yourself doing it in the future?
I didn't really pick it because I thought it would be a job, just because it looked fun for me and because I wanted to pick something more active. And also, no, I probably wouldn't do this as a job. It's too time consuming.
This presentation, Mr. Woolcombe, do you plan on making any sheaths for any of these weapons?
Yeah, I kind of want to make one for the knife because it would be pretty hard to, like, yeah, to do it for the scythe.
Adam.
Yeah.
So if you were going, Mr. Woolcombe, if you were going to make a sheath for it, what would you make it out of?
I don't know. I have another knife I made a sheath for out of a bike tire, which didn't work too well. But I would probably make it out of some sort of thick material or something that couldn't cut through.
Yeah, I think that would be smart to have a sheath for that.
Yeah.
Mr. Woodward.
Do you need a permit to do this?
Oh hell yeah. Which I don't have. Nope.
So you're doing this illegally?
Pretty much.
How do you apply for said permits? Do you know?
No.
Okay, so here's a question, and maybe Isha can help us.
Yeah.
So to buy this off of the internet,
Yeah.
anybody can do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. To be honest, I'm not sure that you need a license or anything to run that in your backyard. Yeah. I don't
So
know.
he's actually not doing anything.
Yeah.
Oh, I searched it up. Apparently it's illegal to build
And
weapons,
then
but
just want to look up like knife laws in Canada, but
Yeah.
you know, as far as I know, you're allowed to carry a camp knife. Yeah.
Are you allowed to carry a scythe?
I'm not sure about
probably
that.
not.
It's a farm tool, so
That's true.
Maybe.
yeah.
Melanie, come on up. If you can come close to the mic, that'd be great.
Great presentation, Mr. Woolcombe. I think the question many people have in the room is, does it cut?
Oh, it does.
And what does it cut?
Wood. And
Have you made anything with the knife?
no, mostly because it's a really thick knife.
Yeah.
So if you were to want to like carve something or something like that with a knife, it would usually have to be more thin. But since this is more of a thick knife, the angle of the actual sharp part is way thicker than a normal knife, which is probably like this. It's more like this. So it would be really hard to cut something like that.
Right. Do you have plans to use it for anything in particular?
I'm probably gonna bring it to the solo next week for camping. If I'm allowed.
Wyatt, Shell, come on up.
Wait, we are allowed knives on the solo, right?
We'll talk.
That was a pretty awesome presentation, Mr. Woodcombe. I was wondering, are you planning on doing so this summer, selling these? And if so, can I have one?
Probably not selling them, but I will probably do something over the summer.
Lee.
I was wondering, you did a great presentation, and I was wondering how did the electrical, or not, electric,
The induction forge?
yeah, how that forge worked, and how much did this one cost?
That one costs around 170, something around that. And the electric induction forge, it runs a super high alternating current through a coil, and then when you stick a piece of metal through that, the magnetic field will heat up the metal, since they're both magnetic. So, yeah.
Are they a lot safer?
Yeah, but once you put the metal in there, I think it heats up the whole thing, so it's the same thing, basically.
Michaela, come on up.
Great presentation. About 7 years ago, there was a student that built his own forge. Did you happen to interview him?
Yeah, I did. He came to he came to when I was first making that knife, and he helped me and he gave me some tips.
So a really interesting thing about that, his name is Ryan Kerr, and Ishan was also his advisor, which is cool because it's a totally different kind of forge. So he was, it was a solid fuel forge, wasn't it? Can you
Yeah, that's right.
describe
Ryan used a coal forge, and he had a lot of success with it. Yeah.
Yeah, he made quite a few knives and a fairly big sword.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so he had that built in his backyard using different fuel. Go ahead.
Great presentation, Mr. Woolcombe. Is there something special that the anvil is made of to maximize, like, shaping the weapon?
Probably.
Well, the anvil is just a very, very hard steel.
Yeah.
And then just a lot of weight behind it, too.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, why does the anvil have like a tip on it? Is it like,
Well, the way I used it was to wrap the metal around when I was doing the scythe. I wrapped it around, but I think it can be used for a couple different purposes. Pretty sure wrapping the metal around is the most prominent one.
So this part here you're talking about?
Yeah, the horn.
Alec. Can you walk it away?
I've got some questions. How do you know how expensive the electric forge is?
No, I don't.
And which one is the easiest to forge with?
I'm gonna say probably this one, or actually maybe the solid fuel forge because there's a bigger area of heat, but I'm gonna say this one because it probably gets the hottest.
Mr. Woolcombe, can I actually get you to give us a tour of this? Like, come on over here and tell me what all of these do.
So these just turn it on and off. This is where you attach it to a gas bottle, and the shell, which is what keeps the heat inside, and then this is an insulated layer of something. I think asbestos? Yeah, asbestos. And then the fire bricks inside, which is what you put the things on. But as you can see, this is a different color than this one because the fire, instead of being blown down to there, I didn't notice it and it got caught up in here. The fire was blowing from here instead of there, which melted the whole tube. And if it went any more up, it could have gone through and it blew up the gas barrel that I was standing right beside, which wouldn't have been very fun, but yeah.
Mr. Woolcombe, was this a replacement part then, since you melted the first one?
No,
Or
it's,
you just melted the paint off it?
I just melted the paint off of it.
And can I just get some clarity here?
Yeah.
So why was the gas coming out of here?
When it starts to run out of gas, it probably sputtered a little bit. So I actually don't know. Do you know why it catches up in there?
Yeah, they just call it a bit of a backfire.
Yeah.
Many reasons why it can happen, but yeah, one of them is you run low on fuel.
Yeah.
Because usually the fire is meant to all be contained within the asbestos chamber, but
Yeah.
sometimes for some reasons it can pop back up into that air mixture chamber. That's when the fuel mixes with the air.
Yeah.
How did you put the fire
Oh, I just turned it off after I noticed.
out? Sir, come on.
Thank you for showing us all this. It's like a lot of great information and really quite intriguing. But if you were like carve something like, if you were like write like for so and so on the knife, would you burn it into the knife? Would you like carve it with some tool? How would you get that in there?
You could use a knife, which would probably be pretty hard, or you could use a Dremel, which is a little motor that has a spinning bit at the end that you could attach different parts to, which we lost, but.
Mr. Carter, come on.
Mr. Woolcombe, thank you. I think blacksmithing is something close to magic. I think it's a really noble, ancient thing, and I'm so pleased to see you be in there. I'm kind of jealous, actually. I came from Japan, which is kind of the land of knives and things. And actually, tomorrow, if you'd like, I'll bring some of my knives in. I've got some really cool ones.
Oh, really?
I'd love to see yours, and we can talk about the steel and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested in, now that you know how to work a forge and a hammer and anvil, you're sort of your creative. Do you see a piece of steel and think, oh, I can make this with that? Or do you start with an idea, I want to make a knife or I want to make a scythe or something, and then look for the piece of material? Kind of where does the inspiration come from?
I don't know. I probably for these, I saw I thought of the thing first and then found the steel for it. But I've definitely seen a couple things that I've looked at it and thought, that could be used really good for a sword or like some other kind of weapon or something. But yeah.
Last one, just a quick one. You mentioned you made something that maybe was the knife out of a leaf spring.
Yeah, they're both made of a leaf spring from a car that Yishan gave me.
So I was wondering that because I've heard that, the reference to will it cut, right? Whatever that show is. And often things get made out of leaf springs. Why is that? What's special about the steel and leaf spring?
I think it's probably because they're way harder and because of the higher carbon count in tool steel. I think that's probably why.
So hard. And what was the other one called? There's tool steel and...
Tool steel and structural steel.
Okay. Well, thanks for answering. It's been a brilliant question for a long time.
Great presentation. I'm wondering what material are the gloves made of to not burn your hands?
The gloves have a layer of leather on them so they don't melt, and then they also have a layer of insulation on the inside so that your hands don't burn off if you touch it.
Mr. Woolcombe, that was a really cool presentation. I'm really happy to see you have all your fingers and toes still. But why weapons? If you were to forge something that's not a weapon, what would it be?
Probably either a shield or a thing of armor.
Is a shield technically a weapon?
Like a helmet or maybe a chest plate or something to do with armor. That would be pretty cool.
Alright. And what you talked about, like burning different things, and one of the things that was coke. What is coke?
I think it's like burned coal or something to do with coal. I'm not completely sure.
Hard fuel?
Yeah.
Great. And then just finally, I saw you putting it in and taking it out and brushing it off. What were you doing?
So brushing it off gets all of, you saw in the picture, it was super rusty and all of the little flakes on it. You usually brush it off to get all the flakes off and like all the molten rust on it.
So that's like the impurities?
Yeah, to brush out the impurities.
Fabulous presentation. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about how you get it to be sharp? I know you talked about a grinder, but how hard is that part of the process?
So I started out with, when I did it, I would hit the edge. So I hit the edge along it. So it was already more thin than the body from when I was finished with forging it. And then me and my dad went in with the sander to sand off all the other stuff and all the impurities in it. And then we used, I don't know what it's called. What's the green rotating thing?
The grinder.
A grinder.
Yeah. The grinder with the sandpaper pads.
With sandpaper pads, yeah. And then that made it really sharp and shiny.
So a grinder is really using like a sandpaper, but
Yeah.
more heavy duty?
I have a picture of it. If I turn this on. That. There. Yes. We use that, except instead of having that, which is a cutting attachment, we put a sanding attachment and we put it the other direction and sanded down the edge.
Looks like it creates a lot of sparks, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
How do you like check if it's structural steel or tool steel?
I'm not sure.
There's a couple different ways you can check. So, for example, like if you have a car leaf spring versus like an I-beam, you know, that would be a very obvious indication for like what setting you find it in. Is it an I-beam or is it a car spring? You can also do a test with a grinder. And the harder the steel, the less sparks you'll get shooting off of it. And then you can also do something like tap it with a hammer and see if it makes a dent. So you can do like comparison testing. So if you have a hammer, which you know is hard, you can hit the steel, and if it makes a dent, you'll know that the hammer is harder than the steel you hit.
So what is a hammer, what kind of steel is a hammer made of?
Tool steel.
Tool steel, okay.
Yeah.
Julie, you had a question?
Really good presentation, Mr. Woolcombe. I was wondering, so you said you wanted to make a sword in the summer, right? Other than a sword, what would be something that you would want to, like, make?
I really wanted to make an axe, but the problem with the axe is you have to have a really thick piece of metal, and then you have to, if you don't have the correct machinery for it, you have to get a metal wedge and you have to hit the hole that the wood goes through for it to actually be an axe. But I don't think I can do that because that takes like years. Yeah.
Mr. Woolcombe, which one do you prefer, the knife or the scythe?
I don't know. I think I like the knife more, that it's like an actual usable thing. Like I can use it for tasks and like cutting and that kind of stuff. The scythe is more just for looking cool and maybe hanging up somewhere. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I like the scythe more because it took, actually, I don't know if it took longer. I don't know, I like them both equally. maybe the knife a little bit more, but.
Alright, so would you be able to like heat up what you don't like the knife anymore? Would you be able to heat that up and then change it into something else, like whatever, do something else with it?
Yes.
Mr. Woolcombe, we're all very, very proud of the work that you have come up with. I have just one question. When you started out this project and you did your research about working with metals, what kind of career paths do you think that might lead to?
I'm not sure. Usually everything made out of metal is made with machines except for like artwork. Like metal artwork, you can, it's really hard for machines to make it, I think. But that's pretty much the only career path, is making art and selling it online. Or there's also horseshoes, which are still being made by hand today. So there's those two. Those are the only two that come to my head right now.
And then my one curious question, how long does it take to actually heat up machine before you can put in metal?
The forge is pretty much as hot as it will be right when you start it up. But when you get the metal and you put it in for the first time, usually you have to wait 30 to 35 minutes. And then you take it out and you hit it with the hammer, and then it'll be, when you put it back in, it'll already be pretty hot. So you don't have to wait as long the second time and the third time you do it.
Last question.
All right.
For your sword, were you thinking of a regular sword, or were you thinking kind of like a samurai type sword?
Like, yeah, probably a katana, because double-bladed swords are way harder, and a katana has only one sharp side.
Thank you so much. Miguel.
Does the forge change the composition of the metal, the carbon in it? And if so, does that mean that there's a limited number of times you can fire it?
I think by heating it up that much and hitting it a lot, it displaces a lot of the atoms in the metal, making it super brittle and like tense. But then if you put it in if you put it in an oven on a high heat for a long amount of time, it soothes out all the atoms and the particles, and it makes it more stabilized.
Great presentation, Mr. Woolcombe. So you guys were saying that if you hit a hammer against something that's weaker than it, then the other thing will get a dent in it. If you hit the hammer on something stronger than it, would that mean that the hammer got a dent in it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Woolcombe, I forgot. You showed me these before, and there's a huge difference in the quality of the finish on your knife and your side. Can you hold them up and tell us, like, how did you get the one to be so, like, your side was like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
How did you get the metal to look like that?
So what this was is I tried to do less of a finish on it because I think it would fit really well with like this thing and the rope wrapped around it, and then and then this to look more old and weathered. So what I did is I purposely hit the hammer kind of off, so it put these divots. So while I was polishing it, some of the places on the knife are more engraved, so it only reached the top part. So it only polished one little bits of the knife instead of others. And then
in the process of hammering it out, you made the texture of the metal.
Yeah, so if I were to, let's bring this. If I were to hit the metal like this, I'm not actually gonna hit it because I'll break it. But if I were to hit it like this, like that, it'll evenly along the knife, it'll make it all the same, it'll make it really flat as this knife is. But then if I grab this one and I were to hit it more like this, like carved into it, it'll put dents in it, and the grinder can't reach the dents. It can only reach the part that hasn't been dented. So that's why it makes it look like that.